Again, this is the PuLSE Institute National Forum here on the Black Migration Crisis, looking at the state of Haiti and what is happening. And of course, as Brian rightly put it, what is happening at the border is a culmination. Brian, I'm going to go straight to you. What is being misunderstood about this current crisis? I want you to expound upon what you said earlier about this being perhaps the product, if you will, of something that has been long running.
I think there's two important questions we need to ask to answer that question. One of them is, how did the people get to Del Rio, to the US border? And second, why are they being whipped? In terms of how they got to the border, most of them left Haiti 5 to 10 years ago. They've been fleeing over that period from the combination of corruption, economic mismanagement, and repression of a government that has been propped up currently by the Biden administration, before that by the Trump administration, and before that by the Obama administration. For 10 years, we've supported a government that is yet to hold a timely or fair election, that has been involved in crimes against humanity and run the economy into the ground. When the people left Haiti, most of the ones that got to the border, they tried to find a life of dignity and safety in South America. They found they were able to do that for a time in some places, but eventually they were unable to do that. And they took a very desperate trip up to the border. And that trip involved, for most of them, dozens of miles of walking through the Darien Gap that has no public transportation. It's a jungle you have to walk through. They endured crime, racist attacks, discrimination, all sorts of hardship to get to the border. And they only would have taken such a hard trip, and especially many of them with children, if they absolutely had no other choice. And so we need to understand that they have no other choice, and we need to think about what we have done to make that. The second question we need to ask is why are they being whipped? And they're being whipped because we have made a decision as a country that we do not need to respect the law, international law and US law, with respect to people coming at the border. There is, under the Refugee Convention, under US law, you cannot expel somebody who makes a claim for asylum without giving them a hearing. The US has made up a public health justification when this was, Title 42 was first put together by Stephen Miller, Trump's immigration czar, who was he's a white supremacist. He comes from a white supremacist background. He is dedicated to keeping America's European majority. And he did a whole series of actions in office to promote the maintenance of the white majority, including was Title 42. Title 42 is a public health measure that allows you to exclude people, not expel them, exclude them if there's a risk of bringing in a communicable disease. He tried to make the flu or the mumps a pretext for the law. That didn't work. But he got lucky when COVID came and he pounced on it. The CDC's own scientists, the government's own scientists, said there's no public health justification for that under the Trump administration. This week, Dr. Fauci, he said there's no public health justification for using Title 42. But under Trump, he instituted it, and specifically to keep America white. And Biden is keeping it as well. There still is not a public health justification. It is still all about keeping America white. And I'm not saying that President Biden himself is trying to keep America white, but what he's doing is he is trying to placate the people who would. There's a group of white supremacist organizations that have hijacked the US immigration debate for over 20 years. They've prevented any rational immigration reform, including reform that's supported by broad majorities of the American public. And they do it by ratcheting up racist hysteria. They did it to President Bush. They did it to President Biden. They did it to President the other President Bush, and they did it to President Obama. And the Biden administration is just trying to avoid having a fight with the white supremacists, putting the price for that, not taking that fight on the Haitians. But that is a misguided policy. It's not going to work. Appeasing white supremacists only shows that their tactics work. And what the administration needs to do is to step up and and stand up against it. And the rest of us need to have the administration's back when they do that.
Brian, quickly before I move to Professor St. Paul, I remember the entire war in Iraq. The human rights violations that were shown in the Abu Ghraib prison issue. It became a huge international conversation around international human rights. Given what happened at the border, those patrol agents on horses, and like you eloquently explained here, and any kind of implications when it relates to the Geneva Conventions, international organizations looking at that to raise something like that before international constitutional bodies to debate this about what happened at the border.
Sure. The High Commissioner for Human Rights and the High Commissioner for Refugees of the UN have both made statements that this is a violation of international law, especially the Refugee Convention. The Refugee Convention of 1954 is one of the bedrock instruments of international law. Almost all countries in the world have signed it. In general, almost all countries accept that it is binding on them. And one of the most clear provisions of that convention is you can't send people back who have made a claim for asylum without giving them a chance to make that claim. So it's really it's a no-brainer. There's nobody who is serious about international law who's trying to who's trying to say that the administration's position is legal. And in fact, Senator Kamala Harris, when Trump instituted this policy, she co-sponsored a bill saying it's a violation of both U.S. and international law. But obviously, when now she's part of the Biden administration, she has not said that. But she knows, the whole administration knows that it's illegal. A court in Washington, D.C. a month ago said it was illegal, although the administration got a Trump appeals court to overturn that. But they know it's illegal. They're just willing to do something that's illegal as a way, because they feel it's going to give them the opportunity to advance other parts of the agenda. Unfortunately, it's Haitians who are paying the price for that.